Hey everyone, Denise here. So we are back with another video from our February 2024 classes. This is from the Simon Says Stamp class with this really cute daisy sentiment. So what you are going to do first, I'm just going to tell you about the stamping first, because sometimes I think it's easier to get the stamping done and then go back and do the rest. And in this case, it may take you a little more time to stamp and color and whatnot. So remember, if I'm speaking too quickly for you, or if you're playing along with me, or if you're watching through, whatever the case may be, you can always hit pause or rewind, go through and then go back. Whatever you need to do as you're crafting along with me. And if you did not take the class, did not get a kit to go, you have this stamp, go ahead and craft. We'd love to have you join us in our Facebook group, Denise's Creative Cave. If you like the video, go ahead and hit like. And if you would subscribe to the channel, I try to post the videos from the classes every month, and hopefully I will have some time at some point to go back to my first thing, which has always been scrapbooking. So fingers crossed that I'll get there at some point too. So with this, we are making these cards. Well, we made these cards. So if you bought the kit, then you've got what you need pre-cut. The sentiments are pre-cut. The shadow is not, because we did something else in class because we couldn't find the shadow. No big surprise. But it just is easy. So we have these, right? So we see what we're making here. You've got this sentiment in there. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need your stamp. You're going to need some black ink. Hang on a second and I'll tell you more about that. You're going to need some coloring mediums. I used regular markers. I used Tombow markers. That's just regular, normal markers. And I did them with two different colors. Sometimes I shaded the dark areas, sometimes not. So I used two, the edges here, you can see, I think a little bit, maybe where you see the middles and the edges, where I just did a little bit of real basic shading here and there, because that's all I can do with shading is basic. So I did 2 yellows, 2 pinks, 2 purples, and I did 1 green because I wasn't getting involved in it. So that's what I use with regular Tombow markers. Or any other kind, really. So it didn't really matter what kind of ink I used. VersaFine Black is my go-to ink for stamping, unless, of course, I'm using alcohol markers, in which case Tombow, I'm sorry, that's the markers. In which case, Memento Tuxedo Black is my go-to for any kind of alcohol markers. So since I was using regular markers and not watercolor markers or anything else, I just went with VersaFine. So those are the markers: 2 yellows, 2 pinks, 2 purples, if you're following me. I did also grab an orange to put in there. You need either Versamark ink or white pigment ink, and you'll need some white embossing powder. If you like a static thing, you go ahead and grab your static thing while you're at it. All right, so you are going to stamp this large image, this cluster, that cluster, this large image, and this flower. So you're going to do that in whatever black ink you have chosen, and then you're going to fussy cut. Now in class, we did not fussy cut. We used the scan and cut machine. So if you are at home, I do know none of the stamping for you if you bought the kit to go, because you get the stamp with the class, or if you couldn't make it last minute because of something, that happened on your end, you got sick. And if we missed you because you got sick, I hope you're feeling better. But we don't stamp and cut for you with that kind of thing. I did cut all the sentiments so that you had those. So you can either use your own scan and cut, or you can fussy cut, or you can stamp directly on some other paper. Now in this case, this is cut. You see the ridge there. This is cut on the scan and cut. You do have a piece of white paper that's embossed that you'll have to cut down. But if you don't want to use this and you want to stamp directly on white paper, then go ahead and grab a sheet of your own that's smooth and stamp directly on that. That way you don't have to fussy cut it at all. So you do have some options. Alrighty, so let's move this to the side and let's get some things going. So at this point, again, you may have paused or you're watching all the way through. And again, my camera slowly lowers itself. I don't know why. So you've done this, this, and this in whatever black ink you're using. I'm going to tell you to wait on the white, the embossed, for now until we get some paper cut. So the other ones, because they're being cut out, it doesn't matter. But the white embossed one is not being cut out. You are going to do it directly on here. So let's first get to some card base cutting, shall we? So you've got white 8.5 by 11 paper if in your kit. And again, if you don't have a kit, but you're using this stamp that you have at home or something similar, by all means, grab the supplies that you need and do with what you have at home. So on 8.5 by 11 paper, we're going to make a 5 by 7 card. So take your paper on the 11-inch side, cut it down to 10 inches. So on the 11-inch side, right, cut it to 10, turn it, cut it to 7, and then score the 10-inch side at 5 inches, so down the middle. I want you to do that twice, 2 times. Ooh, I never really realized how pudgy my fingers are until I see them on screen. So take another piece of 8.5 by 11 paper, unless you're at home and you have 5 by 7 card bases, in which case go you. You don't have to do any of this. Grab another sheet and again, cut the 11-inch side at 10 inches. Turn the paper, cut it at 7 inches so that you'll have a piece that's 10 by 7. And on the 10-inch side, score it at 5 inches. And that will give you your 5 by 7 base. So you'll need 2 of those. And then you're going to need a slimline base. It is not my normal 9x4 because I use these great dies made by Crafty Meraki. If you don't know Crafty Meraki, take a look at them on Facebook or on their website, Crafty, C-R-A-F-T-Y, Meraki, M-E-R-A-K-I. And take a look at their website and the things that they have. They're actually in the middle of a big change and a refocus of what they're selling and their programs and such. So it's a great time to check them out. Bindu is the owner. She's wonderful. So if you have a chance, take a look. You'll see their blog, and I'm sure their social media sites will be listed there. They recently changed the name of their Facebook page, so I don't remember exactly what it is, but they've got some great things, and she's got some beautiful flower stamps. If you're into florals, they're amazingly beautiful. So check her out if you don't know her. So this is going to be 8.5 by 3.5, which is smaller than my normal 9x4. So you're going to take that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So we have this here, right? But it's already 8.5 across, so you don't have to cut anything. Simply turn it on the long side and cut it to 7 inches. And then after you cut it on the 7-inch side, score it at 3.5. So that you have 8.5, right? So you don't have to cut anything because here we are. It's an 8.5 by 11, so 8.5 size we need. So no cutting. Turn it long ways, so the 11-inch side. Cut it at 7, and then score it at 3.5. So you're left with a card base that is 8.5 by 3.5 when it's folded. Okay? All right, so let's do the easy stuff first. Your pink card. You can do one of 2 things. Now I had the measurement, you see I have, right, Sharpie on the back. I wrote the measurements wrong when I cut it. It happens. I mean, I liked it the way it turned out. I actually on the back had it at 5.5. So it wasn't the full thing. I had everything a 1/2 inch shorter, the pink and the white. So it didn't look like this, but when you moved everything to the top, if you cut it at that, you had room at the bottom for the hello, and it looked really nice. So I'm going to give you both measurements because the other cards looked great. So the pink, you're going to cut to, so that would be this pink layer. You have the sheet in there. You're going to cut it to 4.5 by 6.5. Now, if you want to make it shorter, I made the mistake of 4.5 by 5.5, which again, looks really nice. And then the white embossed, you see the embossing there, the white embossed sheet, again, if you got the kit, if not, emboss your own, is 4.25 by by 6.25, 4.25 by 6.25. And that's for it to look like mine. Now, if you bought the kit, you don't have the shadow. So if you cut it at the 5.5 and the 5.25, it's still with the 4s, but the 5.5 instead of the 6.5 and the 5.25 instead of 6.25, and you put it up here, it'll be here with a white space at the bottom, and you can put hello right down here, and it fits perfectly, believe it or not. So it's totally up to you. Your hello was already cut out and is in your kit. And if not, I apologize, substitute with something else that you have. But before you adhere these, you are going, if that's the case, you are going to cut your sentiment out of the middle of your pink because you're never going to see it. So that's where you're going to cut it out of. Now, again, you don't have the shadow from the kit. You should have a hello. It did get a little hectic when we noticed that the measurements weren't right. So I do apologize if I missed cutting this for you. It may have been among that chaos. So again, my apologies, but use any sentiment that you have. Anything will work. And then just once you have that cut out, this is your card base. Pop your pink on, pop your white on, color up your flowers, pop them on, pop on your sentiment, done. Again, another easy card to do, where with this one, and again, I love this, I think it's so pretty. If I had something like this at home to use, I would just pre-stamp everything and then I would just color, and I would probably color all of the pinks. I don't tend to color one image at a time. I do it in stages so that I'm done with one, put it away. Now I'm on the yellow, put it away. I finished, I'm onto the purple, put it away. That way I'm always in a state of moving forward instead of doing one card at a time. I'm never done with one card, but when I'm done, I have them all done. And for me, again, that works. So that's it. I didn't pop anything. This looks raised, but it really isn't. That's it, done. So easy. All right, then I want you to take your black sheet of paper. So you have this black sheet that's in there. Actually, let me move this so you can see this. So I want you to cut your black sheet at 5.5 inches. So turn it to the 11-inch side and cut it in half, right? Cut it to 5.5 inches. So you'll have two 5.5 by 8.5 pieces. So cut one piece down to 5 by 7, and that'll be your outer, I know it's upside down, that'll be your outer piece that you're going to adhere directly to your card base. And then your next piece, your other black piece, cut to 4.5 by 6.5. So one black piece gets 5 by 7, and one black piece gets 4.5 by 6.5. Right? Yep. 4.5 by 6.5. Okay. Now you don't have blue in your kit. You have yellow. I said that in a video a while back after I made the cards. So you're going to cut down your yellow piece to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. So 4.75 by 6.75. So again, my blue, but your yellow. And then you've got a piece of white in there, and it doesn't matter which you use. I would use one of the smaller pieces, but it doesn't matter what you use. You're going to cut your white down to 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'm sorry, this is wrong on the back, so that's why I'm just looking at it. 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. 4.25 by 6.25. This is a white piece. And you have the black happy birthday. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to grab your Misty, and you're going to clean off your stamp because you used it to stamp it in black ink, but now you're going to use either Versamark or white pigment ink. I would suggest white pigment ink if you have it, only because it's going to be really hard to see to begin with, but also if you miss anything with the embossing powder, at least then it's not going to look like blank or like you missed it like it would with Versamark because it's clear. With the white pigment ink, at least it will still look white. It's not going to look white embossed, but it'll look less like a mistake or a step you missed. And again, because it's white on white, it's going to be a little challenging for you to see. Not impossible, but a little challenging. So when you do this in the Versamark, if you're not that familiar with doing this, if you are, then you know this. But if not, then when you stamp this, even with the white pigmentate on your paper in the MISTI, I would do it 2, maybe 3 times. That way you're sure that you have enough on there. And then use your white embossing powder, put it on there. We all know how to heat emboss, and dry it, right? Emboss it, make sure it gets all right, all shiny. I don't know if you can see the shiny. Make sure it gets all shiny, that it changes from that powdery look to the not powdery look. If you need, for some reason, an tutorial on heat embossing, I'm sure there's so many of them out there on YouTube. I'm not gonna give it to you because I assume that you already know that. But if you notice, when I did mine, I did it off to the side, and in fact it was off this page a little bit, if you can see, because I wanted room for the happy birthday, and I also wanted here. I just didn't want it right in the middle. I just didn't. So once you're done with the heat embossing, I would just leave it to the side to cool for a little bit. And when you're ready, get your Distress Oxide inks out. Now, I used here mustard seed. I just want to make sure. Mustard seed, salty ocean, and saltwater taffy. So mustard seed, salty ocean, saltwater taffy. My recommendation, and this is on, again, the same white piece. My recommendation is to use the mustard seed first, do the saltwater taffy first, and then do the blue in the middle, because your blue is going to make your green up here, it's going to make your purple down here, and then your blue in the middle. So depending on how much blue you want is how much space you're going to leave in the middle, because you want enough overlap. Like, I didn't get enough purple, I don't think. I got a lot of green, but I didn't get enough purple for me. So when you're doing this, be mindful that however much pink, you're going to overlap or you give, that could be more than your blue in the middle, and you could have a lot more purple, a lot more green, maybe not a lot of blue. So as you're doing it, just, remember it. And again, if you need tips on how to blend inks or papers, there are plenty of those on YouTube. I assume that you can do that at this point. Once you're done going over the whole paper, now take your paper towel and rub over this. So literally, because the ink is going to cover it. So take your paper towel and gently, now probably doing circles might be better, just go over it and it will appear. That's all you need to do, right? So all of this, of course, is getting adhered in layers. The 5x7 is onto your 5x7 card base, then your yellow, then your black, and then this. And then your black happy birthday. Again, if you got the kit, if not, grab something that you have and do it that way. And again, I cut this out of one, not the back layer because I had this, but out of the middle layer, because you're not going to see it. So why cut a whole sheet of paper when you've got this here and nobody's going to see it? So just cut it right out of the middle. Nobody's going to notice. Okay, so that's the second card. Now this card is a little bit different. This is our slimline card. This is, again, the dies by Crafty Meraki. And that's why the card is the 8.5 by 3.5, because that's the size of the die. These dies, they are nested. There are 3 of them. They are stitched. I'm sitting down, so let me see if you can see. They are stitched there so you can see. Now this I did something a little bit different with. So for starters, I used reinkers and watercolor paper. If you have the kit, you've got the watercolor paper. I am going to show you what I did, but I'm going to move everything else out of the way because it's going to get a little messy. I highly recommend that you've got some paper towels, that you do this on a non-porous craft sheet. I would put paper towels underneath. I mean, I don't think that I would tape it down or anything else. I mean, we're not, it's not that serious, right? It's a card, but it's okay. It's fine. We'll all survive. But I would do this whole thing on the watercolor paper first, and then, you're going to let it sit for a bit and let it sit into the paper. And then you are going to heat dry it, right, with a heat gun. And then you're going to run it through. Now, if you don't have these dies, you're not ordering these dies, that's okay. Use whatever you have, right? Doesn't have to be this. I did have a sheet. Here we go. I'm going to use a very short, very small piece of paper here just to show you. All right, so I use Distress ink reinkers. I would not use Distress Oxide reinkers for this. only because I don't like the way it looks, and it just doesn't give the same thing. And these two, of course, are going to make mud together, right? If I'm not careful, I'm going to get brown, I'm going to get mud. So be sure that you choose two that work well together. Now, I did do it on something else, and I like this. I didn't like it at first, but when I took it apart, I really liked it. I liked it with the flowers on it. This is just a sample so you can see when I'm done. So you're going to take your water bottle. You are going to wet that paper. And if it curls, so what? It curls. You've got the paper towels underneath and on top of your non-porous sheet so that when you get that pooling on the edge, that's all right. You can just take it off. It's fine. You want to add more, add more. Okay, so take your re-inker. All right, get some in that little dropper and drop it. Now, it should, in theory, just kind of, do like alcohol inks. But sometimes you don't have enough water on there. And remember, this stuff stains, so careful. So you can see it spreading. So I can add more water now, or I can add more of the other color, my second color. My original here, I used, I'm looking, did I not write it down? I am relatively certain that I used, I didn't write it down. That's got to be mustard seed and maybe peacock feathers, maybe. Nope, not sure. But I used a blue and a yellow, and so I got these great greens in there too. So you see this is moving. I'm just going to hit it a little bit more and move it around some more. So you see when you add the water to it, right, it moves because, of course, it's distress. I'm going to add some of the red. See, that moved. Now, do you have to cover the whole thing? Well, no. If you're making 4th of July cards, this might not be a bad combo. This is Crackling Campfire and Broken China, just for the record. All right, so we have this. If I want to hit it with more water, fine. If I don't, that's okay. But now what I'm going to do, because you see I have all that pooling, right? Now you're going to have less of it because your paper is bigger. And of course I'm using the rougher side. So if I just touch it, right, I'm not dabbing it. If I just touch it, you see how that comes right up, right? And all I'm doing is touching the paper towel. So I would get a roll of really cheap paper towels because, I mean, Bounty is great for this, but I don't know that the cards are worth the price of Bounty. Now, if you think, now it's going to soak in as you let it dry, which is why I recommend that you let it dry for a while first before you do anything with it, because, it'll change and it'll absorb and whatever. But if you don't want to wait or like, oh no, that's too dark, I really don't like that. Okay, grab a paper towel, a couple layers, these are thin. Now this is going to lighten it. Just tap. Now you see how dark my paper towel is, and now how light, right? It's almost orange, and how light that is. So you can certainly lighten. Oh no, that's too light. I don't like it anymore. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. Oh, I really don't like that. Okay. And just keep working it. Just keep working. And at some point, you have to be able to say enough is enough and walk away. But again, with all the pooling here, that's why you're using a non-porous craft mat. All right, so I am going to move this to the side. So you see how I did that. Use colors that you like. Use colors that work well together. One of the girls in class today did it, and she got a beautiful autumnal look to it. But she picked up the paper and she was moving this way and getting it to drip, and it looked beautiful. And she used these two inks, the Broken China and the Crackling Campfire. So the inks were kind of muddy. They didn't look like mud, but they were sort of muddied together because she, used water and then wet it and then dripped and then maybe added a little more water and a little more color here and there. And it looked beautiful. It was like a perfect autumn card. So you can make it do anything. You just have to put the time and the effort into it. All right, so this is what mine looked like. Let me put it back together. This is what mine looked like when it was done with those same two colors. So you see that I didn't get some down here, and that's okay because I knew that I was cutting some of it off and it went within that. So take your whole panel and run it through the machine. Now, again, if you prepaid for your kit, I made your panel or I at least cut it for you. You can put it back together like this and you can do the watercolor that way. But I do believe that I colored everybody's like this. So if you don't like this one or you ordered a kit, sorry, but you can always get your own watercolor paper, cut a piece of it, redo it yourself, and then use whatever dyes that you have. So what I did with this particular one, again, this is Crafty Meraki, this piece, gone. But if you see here, there's big, skinny, big, middle. So here's what it is. This card, right? I want you to see it that way. So I have a lot of popping here. This first layer, this outer layer, is flat directly onto the base. This skinny layer here is flat directly on the base. You're rebuilding the die, really. This middle stitch layer, the whole thing is popped. It's all foam tape. It's all foam tape. Okay? So you see I didn't put it everywhere. I put it in pieces, right? Because it's a card. It's not going to last forever. So it's okay if it doesn't have foam everywhere. Now this skinny piece that comes next is flat. See how it's flat? It's flat in between. So I did that next because it was easier than to try to fit it in. Then you have this last stitched panel. That's this one here. I double foam taped it. So what I did was I took foam tape, I layered it on, upside down, I layered it on. I took the tape off. I put another line of foam tape over it, and then I adhered it. So that's how I got this graduate. You see it almost looks like steps. That's how I got that look. So it looks like it's one piece of foam tape when you look at it on the camera, but it really isn't. It's really two. And then the middle is flat. This is flat right in the middle. And I did my colors. I had pre-chosen them because I had pre-chosen the re-inkers. So I did it based on that. The happy birthday. And again, that's pre-cut for you already. And that's that. But it's so easy. It's so much fun. And it's so relaxing to watch those colors just move around. So that's your third one. So I hope that you enjoy this technique. And if you try it, please do me a favor and post it in our group. Again, our group is on Facebook, Denise's Creative Cave, and I believe it's maybe it's layouts and cards or scrapbook layouts and card classes. You would think I would know the name of my own group, but I don't, sorry. I do have a separate page that's Denise's Creative Cave, but that's my Close to My Heart page, so you won't necessarily see the classes posted there. You may, but you won't. So if you are not local, we're on Long Island, and if you're not local to us, I hope that you'll join us and post your cards that you're doing playing along with us, and thanks for joining. And if you are local to Long Island, I hope that you'll come to a class and meet the girls soon. We have a great time together. It's a nice, easy, fun group. I hope that you'll consider joining us. And as always, if this video was helpful or you made the cards, please do me a favor and post them, click a like on the video, and consider subscribing to the page. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day and happy crafting.